We're excited for our guest, Dr. Gina Loudon, who is joining us from sunny Palm Beach, Florida. Welcome, Dr. Gina.
Good to be with you, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. And let's get right into it. So you're a member of President Trump's Women for Trump Campaign Advisory Board. What are women saying about coronavirus? This is on everyone's mind. People are feeling scared. There's record unemployment. What are women wanting to see on the coronavirus?
Well, there's so much to unpack there, but I think that the number one thing is that women are really glad that we have a strong leader. As national co-chair of Women for Trump, I hear all the time from women saying, thank God we have someone who had the vision and the foresight to handle China in the first place, to bring manufacturing back stateside, to make sure that we were attacking the problem of illegal immigration so that our borders were more secure, to make sure that a lot of our jobs were brought back home before any of this even happened, to make sure that we had the strongest economy in world history before any of this even happened. Where would we be right now if Hillary Clinton, God forbid, or anyone else really, frankly, even out of the Republican slate, anyone else were sitting in the Oval Office besides a strong leader like Donald Trump? So I think women recognize that the strength of character, the ability to sort of ignore all of the fray out there that this president has, all the while with a million knives in his back every single day from the establishment and the elite that wants to take him down. This president is unmatched in his ability and his willingness, frankly, to sacrifice to make America great again. And he's done it before and he'll do it again. And I think that confidence is very reassuring to moms, to grandmothers, to aunts, and to women across the board who are concerned about their careers and their futures.
Well, and you mentioned Republicans, and today we saw the president slamming back at a group of Republicans or former Republicans, some high-ranking people who had helped run campaigns like John McCain's campaign, Mitt Romney's campaign, just senior GOP former staffers, a lot of them who'd said they left the GOP after 2016. They came out with a campaign ad that was very aggressive against the president. They called it Mourning in America. It was a play off of Ronald Reagan, and it was mourning like you're mourning, you're sad, instead of the AM time frame. And it's gotten millions of views. It's gotten a lot of traction, and the president is slamming back on this. What does this say about party unity? Do you think that there is going to be a schism heading here into the election? Are Republicans, coming apart at the seams? I mean, what is this all about? I mean, Trump is certainly going after Kellyanne Conway's husband very directly. What does this mean for Republicans?
Absolutely nothing. None of these people are Republicans. They're Republicans in name only. They've never meant anything to the Republican Party. The Republican Party is now the party of Trump. And any of those people didn't vote for the Republican Party or this president beforehand. He doesn't need them. I would hesitate to say that, they do a lot more for the Democrats and always have than they've ever done for the Republicans. So this is nothing but a sham. A group of people that mean absolutely nothing to those of us who actually bear in mind the platform of the Republican Party, which holds certain values to be very important. Those values that were very important to our founding fathers. Those values that, by the way, are saving America at this point. Values of things like small government and freedom and liberty and constitutionality. Those kinds of things. Those things don't matter to the elite in Washington, D.C. The elite in Washington, D.C. are all of one mind, and they are the same as the Clintons, the same as the Obamas, the same as the McCains, and frankly, we're learning more and more, the same as the Bushes and a lot of the others. And so it really doesn't bother me at all that they have just exposed themselves as the globalists that they are. I'm actually glad to see it because it's something that I've been concerned about for a long, long time. And I'm glad that now they've pretty much, said, hey, this is who we are. And you can call them never Trumpers. You can call them globalists. You can call them the elite. You can call them the lamestream media. You can call them Democrats. You can call them socialists. You can call them really pretty much any of those names. You're talking about the same group of people. We didn't need them in 2016. We don't need them now. This president is at an all-time high in terms of his popularity and his approval with his base. And we don't care what polls say. We don't need the same amount of money that they need. We just, generally speaking, don't need them. And so, for anyone who wants to come over to the hard work and the dedication, the tireless energy that this president has poured into his efforts before this pandemic ever happened, since and during this pandemic has happened. Great, we welcome them. But if they want to be distractions and naysayers, we'll expose them for exactly what they are.
And as far as women in particular, women in the suburbs in 2018 were really the Achilles heel for the Republican Party. They were part of why the House flipped from Republican control to Democratic control. What is the strategy here specifically for women? Because women, when you look at their approval of the president, it tends to lag behind men. So what is the specific strategy and the game plan for the campaign on these in particular suburban women?
Well, I first of all don't necessarily subscribe to that school of thought. I happen to think that we lose races when we try to become Democrats and when we subscribe to their identity politics, which we tend to make the mistake of doing over and over again. And I think that's part of what happened in 2018. So I think as long as you subscribe to what is the Republican Party platform and what is really the Trump platform, then we tend to win elections. And if you look at the people that won elections in 2018, they were the people that held tight to the Trump doctrine. And that's how they won. And in fact, in a lot of cases, the Democrats who won ran on Trump's principles. If you look at the races where the Democrats won, they won in districts where they ran on Trump's message. So let that sink in for a minute. That's how a lot of Democrats won who won in 2018. And so I think when you continue to re-examine these and not let the people in the media tell us how it is that things happened, and you look at them, sort of with a critical eye on your own and break it down, we start to see some of the same patterns emerge that I've watched emerge for decades, going clear back to watching races like Bob Dole. We were told again and again that we had to accept a candidate like him who was rather lackluster, who was a globalist, who didn't believe a lot of things that were in the platform that I was active putting in place. And I was told, well, no, you just have to take him as a candidate. And I knew that that wasn't a good choice. When you look at these things with a critical eye and you see the same patterns emerge over and over again, you begin to learn that you don't have to swallow necessarily what some of the establishment media, who are completely in cahoots with a lot of these globalists to begin with, are telling us. And so I don't. And I don't subscribe to it, didn't subscribe to it in 16, didn't subscribe to it in 18. Sure as heck I'm not going to subscribe to it in 2020. This president is doing a phenomenal job of leading our country in ways that are completely original and masterful, really. He plays 3D chess all the time. And so we'll just all be following his lead as he continues to win again. And I will bet you that it is in a landslide, despite their crazy disjointed efforts, that they will continue. This isn't the end of their crazy efforts to undermine this presidency, but I still think he'll win in a landslide.
Well, as you and I talked before, you were certainly ahead of the curve within the Republican Party in 2016 and seeing where things were heading. I want to talk about Joe Biden and the mental health question, because there's been some reports by some, again, in the media, and so I would just want to get your thoughts on them, to say that there's concern that if President Trump or the campaign were to go after Joe Biden's mental fitness, and question his acuity, that could actually potentially backfire with older voters who are very, very active and much more likely to vote than younger voters. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think this has anything to do with age in particular. I think in the case of Joe Biden, this is about exploiting someone who's in a mentally frail state. That could happen to someone at any age. Perhaps it happens more often with people that are older, but I don't think we need to be ageist about it. I think that there are a lot of people I know who I'd love to be as sharp as they are. You and I both knew one of my personal heroes, Phyllis Schlafly, who was as sharp as she could be right up until the last day of her life. And I would have loved to have had her IQ in her last days, right? So I don't think this has anything to do with age. I honestly think that I have a hard time believing that the Democrats are going to let Joe Biden be the ultimate nominee. I think he's a placeholder, and I think it's excruciatingly grotesque to watch the way they're exploiting and using him as they are. I believe it's elder abuse. I think there's very little doubt that he has diminished capacity at this point. If you look at the symptoms of dementia, and I'm way too familiar with them, I've had relatives that I've been through this horrible process with, and he has every symptom, from not just the meandering thoughts and the inability to focus, and can't even read note cards when they provide them for him in a softball interview, having his wife stand in for his interviews to the point of having to push him away from the microphone when he's making mistakes, all the way to his irritability and frustration, where he is yelling at his own supporters in town hall meetings for asking the wrong question, or yelling at friendly reporters for asking a question that he doesn't know how to answer. All of those sorts of things are signs of dementia. Now, no one can diagnose someone with dementia unless they've done a full clinical evaluation, and I'm certainly not here to do that. But I am saying that certainly a lot of the signs are there, as any layman can tell you. And certainly that's no secret. So I think he's a placeholder. I think he's being used. And I think it says a lot about the Democrat Party that they would capitalize on that. I think our president is morally above that. He's not the type of person that would use someone that way.
Let me follow up with you on that, because you said you don't think he'll be the ultimate nominee. Who do you think that would be?
Oh, I think it'll be whomever the Democrat Party decides it will be, just like it was in the last go round. We all know that they kept Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination. It's happened twice now. The Democrat Party and the powers that be in the elite in Washington, D.C. decide who the Democrat nomination goes to. It is not the Democrat voters. It is not the Democrat delegates. We all know that. Very few Democrats will deny that. So I don't know why this is.
You don't have any insight of who they might be potentially coming in as an alternative.
I mean, I can take my guesses, Carrie, but I'm obviously not on the inside circles of the Democrat National Convention. So no, I don't know.
Well, and what's interesting, there was a New York Times columnist who said that in the wake of the Biden sexual assault allegations, that the Democratic Party should start preparing an alternative. And we know that Democrats certainly do read the New York Times. But I wanted to ask you real quick about these allegations against Joe Biden by Tara Reid, one of his former Senate staffers. And we here at Just the News, we just started a partnership with Scott Rasmussen, the legendary pollster. And our polling recently found this week that by a 3-1 margin, voters say that the national media has not been aggressive enough in reporting about these sexual assault allegations. So you, as a Republican woman, I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially working with the Women for Trump as the co-chair. What is the sense within the campaign about these allegations vis-a-vis Kavanaugh and Republican men who have had similar allegations? What's your read on all of this?
Well, this is speaking for myself. I don't want to speak for Women for Trump, or certainly not the campaign, and most especially not the president as a whole. But my take on it personally is that, if you are Joe Biden, or if you're Joe Biden's campaign, or whoever his puppet masters are, and if you knew that none of this was true, why don't you want to make sure that it's put to bed? Why wouldn't you want every document released immediately and all light shown, right? But they're doing everything they can to hide from this, to not speak on it, to do, everything they can to try to cover it up and make sure that there is no ability to get to the bottom of it. And that to me tells me there's something to hide. I mean, if we look at Joe Biden's past, there is so much what looks like corroborating information out there regarding his behavior toward women for a long, long time, that it would be hard not to take a second look at these accusations to begin with. Comparing that to Kavanaugh is almost laughable, like a guy that drank beer in college, and that's really about the only thing anybody could ever find on Kavanaugh, period. And there was zero corroborating evidence of any kind. And so when you look at these two situations, the biggest difference is one thing, and you and I both know it, and so does the media, and that is that Kavanaugh is a conservative and Joe Biden's a liberal. And that's really what it comes down to. There is a different standard. Everyone knows it, including the Democrats that I talk to know it, and the honest ones will even admit it. That's the only difference, and that's what it comes down to.
So as far as the media, I mean, we ran a piece about the New York Times, and the executive editor, he said that he admitted there was a double standard in how the New York Times reported about Kavanaugh versus Biden. And it was quite Orwellian, we thought, because the language he used to try to explain it away was that, well, it was just a hotter news item, the Kavanaugh, versus Biden being a less hot news item, which made no sense to me, because the president is a higher office than the Supreme Court with one slot versus 9 slots. but well, it was certainly at least equal under the eyes of the Constitution, the branches. But so that was a bit of an admission that seemed to ring true for a lot of people. But as far as how women are viewing this, women voters, do you think, I mean, it did seem that there were some women on the fence about Kavanaugh, some, Republican or maybe some moderate women. I personally know some women who thought that the allegations seemed to be somewhat credible. And honestly, women who I was surprised who gave some credence to the allegations against Kavanaugh. So do you think that these allegations could hurt Biden?
I mean, yes, of course I would think. I mean, I'm watching it and thinking, you as a mother, one thing that nobody's pointed out is that phone call to Larry King that mysteriously disappeared from internet searches. And you hear that call, and as a mother, I could hear the despair in her voice all those years ago of her talking about her daughter at her job, being harassed by this senator. We as mothers, I myself as a mother of 5 children, 2 daughters, I can imagine how that feels. And so that has barely been addressed by the media. It's barely had any play in media. And I think when you're a woman and you're kind of watching all this happen, you're going, why is that getting no play in mainstream media? Why did that disappear from our internet searches? Who's in control of those? Who are they friends with? And you start to ask these questions and you start to put together a picture that's pretty obvious. And then you ask yourself, with the media, when they're saying, oh, well, this was a sexier item to cover. Kavanaugh was a sexier item to cover. Really? Why is that, media? And as a mom out here and as a woman, I'm asking, why isn't the media asking the question why? If it's sexier, why is it sexier? If it's selling more newspapers or it's getting more clicks, why is it getting more clicks? And is it not because of the way that you're packaging it? And do you not bear some responsibility in that, media boss, right? If you are not covering it, is it about the way you're covering it? Is it about the way you're packaging it? Is it about the way you're presenting it? So I think that those are questions that media is going to be held accountable for a long time to come in the eyes of women. And I think if you look at, for example, the number of small donations from women have doubled for President Trump. And I think that it's little things like this that women are watching, and they may not be terribly vocal about it. Women, we have a lot of protecting to do with our families. It's scary, Carrie, this, to be out there and to speak on the front lines as a woman. I get threats. My children get threats. You get scary things that happen to you all the time. And if you're going to put yourself out there, you're putting your family out there at the same time. I shudder to think what it feels like to be someone inside the Trump family. The darts and arrows that come at the women in the Trump family are reprehensible, okay? And so to be someone who is affiliated with the president in any way or defending him is kind of scary. But these little donations for the president have come in and have doubled for this president from women donors.
The number of women donors or the amount that has been raised or donated by women?
The number of women donors, the number of small women donors. And that just tells me a lot, because small women donors, obviously, Carrie, those are the real people out there. These aren't necessarily women CEOs, although there are more of those under our president than ever before. Let's not forget that. But I'm just talking about normal, everyday women. That communicates something to me, that there are just a lot of women who just want to say, attaboy. I get you. I understand what you're doing. And I may not be out there on social media, and I may not want to put my family at peril and go on TV and talk about you or write op-eds every day. But I get you, Mr. President, and here's my $50 contribution, thanking you for what you're doing to protect my family. And I think it's because of situations just like this, Carrie, that the media wants to ignore.
Do you know how many of those are first-time donors? Because historically, women in general give far less than men.
That's right. You know what, Carrie? I don't know that, but I will find out that answer and I will get it to you.
Thank you. Very interesting. And real quick, and again, we appreciate your time, Dr. Gina. Tell us about your new role that you're in.
Yeah, thank you. I just took a position. I'll be senior anchor with America's Voice News, and we'll do a massive hard relaunch coming up here late summer, early fall. Super excited. We'll have some big names coming at you. We already have amazing, tremendous programming. We are already up on Roku and Dish and Pluto and pretty much every place you could want to find media. Again, it's America's Voice News, and I could not be more excited to be affiliated. We have some amazing partnerships to announce as well, and very friendly, a platform unlike any other, not trying to compete with anyone, but trying to just gather all First Amendment lovers and all free speechers out there and tell everybody, we welcome you and we want to work with you. And that's really, really what we're doing. I'm very, very, never been happier in my entire life in terms of my work and my life in my work. So thank you.